what I forgot to say last time, that is that because people get irritated when you point at their causeless causer or the fountain of funding of the boundless bounty, because they're irritated, you have to go there. Because this is an underexposed area of their thought. It is shielded by this adrenaline booby trap that goes off and the neocortex shut down. And we all know this happens when we have an exam and we are very fearful. Then our performance goes down. Because our higher brain layers shut down. It goes into this animal fight or flight mode. And because it replicates like a virus fear through the herd, it is likely an underexposed area of thought in lots of people. So there's a lot to be learned there. The signatures are speeding up of reactions and irritation at questions to causes, 110% sure of being right, and projections. So projections are that there's ignorance about what causes your behavior, and you project that in very far systems or things that are concept very often logically contradictory. So, to name an example, a politician says, I'm very convinced I serve the interest of the common good. And because he's very convinced, other people believe him because he's convinced of himself. But what's really going on is that the common good has no interest. There is no, you have different individuals, they have interest, but there's no common interest. If you have two people trading, one has interest of a high price and the other of a low price, but there's no common interest. So what a politician says when he says, my drive, the cause of my actions is the interest of the common good, is that the cause of my actions is my own interest. And that is what I serve. And because I'm unaware of it, I sound very convincing, and I project that onto this thing called the common good. Another one is, I'm very convinced the climate is a very unstable system. I mean, I am very unstable. That is what the causes the drive of my actions. I am unaware of that. I project that onto something very complicated, like the climate system, which has been very stable for millions of years, basically. Another one is, I'm very convinced that the universe is driven by an uncaused causer in the sky, by God, which means I am driven by unknown causes and I am unaware of it, and I project that onto this logical contradiction. And if you look at it, it's everywhere. I mean, even specific cases. If you look at Karl Marx, he was married to nobility, so he's married to money. Then he abused his mate. He made her pregnant, his employee, and shoved the responsibility into his friend Friedrich Engels' shoes. And then I think two of his daughters committed suicide. It's also something that hangs around that kind of stuff. And Karl Marx was a bit of original poverty pimp. So his household was a reflection of what communism would become later on. Married to money, abusive of the workers, and a high suicide rate among the population. But Karl Marx would say that capitalists exploit their workers, and you could just take the slide out of the projector in his head and say, yeah, what it means is I exploit my workers, check. I'm unaware of this causes. That's why I sound so damn convincing and everyone believes me. And I project it onto the capitalist, which he also had a logically contradictory definition of. So, lots of examples. Politicians say the people need to handle debt responsibly. Means I cannot deal with debt responsibly. I am unaware of it, and that's why I managed to convince so many people to borrow me a lot of money. Or we have to move forward in this country. It means I am stagnant and I'm unaware of it. Now, the first uncaused causer I started questioning was religion. And why I was able to do this without my adrenaline booby trap going off, I think it was because in my childhood already a lot of hell and damnation was taken out of the preachers, and there was already a lot of softening up. It was considered not bon ton to talk to it in this church, at least. And I think that in combination with an environment that allowed for skepticism, a later environment at least, that gave enough support to ditch the thing, at least formally. It has lots of influences still. I think stays within you forever. The second uncaused causer was a state. It was not something I was really looking for. I just stumbled into it and doing some research on economy. I thought some things were weird there, and digging into it, then I ran across all these economists that make perfect sense, and one that make completely no sense. And to my surprise, the ones that made perfect sense were in the fringes. Why did the booby trap not go off there? Well, I think there's a strong resemblance with religion and state. I mean, they're both logically contradictory. They're metaphysical. They build a myth of metaphysics. They're murderous, intimidating, and they have a moral condemnation as their fuel. So I think took the momentum to, okay, basically it already started with Santa Claus when they told me that Santa Claus was a lie. Then it's okay, then God is a lie too. So and then if you say God is a lie, but they only tell you you're about to die or something, then the state is a lie too. I mean, then you just shove out the whole bunch of it and you keep going. And the last uncaused causer I came about was free will, and then it gets kind of a routine. It ties into morality, so it is morality in a different way than I use morality, and morality is the fuel that drives both religion and state. So you need to be very aware of that. And it's also a metaphysical thing. It cannot be material, because material matter and energy behaves logically consistent. Now, criticism to the Darwinists often say, you cannot say I'm wrong, because I'm just the way I am unfolding like the laws of nature. How can you criticize it? Well, suppose that is just a thing with the word wrong that is a bit ambiguous. Suppose I'm a teacher and a kid walks into the class and I say to the kid, 1 + 1 is 3. 1 + 1 is 3. 1 + 1 is 3. And I ask him then, how much is 1 + 1? And then the kid is likely to answer 3. Now, is the kid wrong or right? The kid is wrong in the sense that 1 + 1 is 2. And so objectively he made a false statement, but it's very understandably that he made this statement like that, because I just told him 1 + 1 = 3. So he has respect for adults. He looks up to them. His brain is made for learning stuff from them, so he's likely to repeat that back at me. So there's two different ways of looking at wrong. The word wrong, you need two different words for that action. Now, why is there so much fear of understanding the causes of evil, for example, or why does it trigger this fear? I think I know why that is, because it would lead to empathy. If you take the judge from the previous video and you say, okay, he has to judge the guy who murdered his wife, and you could say, well, if he had a brain tumor or something, that would create more empathy for him, because that could explain why he did that. And so looking into the causes of people's behavior would automatically almost create empathy. And I think that is not a bad thing in itself, because it just turns the evil guy into a sick guy. And I still remember when I was told that there's some stupid people out there who say a bad childhood is an excuse for criminal behavior, and it was implied that that is why criminals were running free in the streets. And I found it very plausible at the time, but it is a confusion of an explanation of the causes with an excuse for the actions. And I think that is because there is fear of looking into the causes, because that would create understanding and empathy. And I think that empathy is feared because it is feared that it is contagious, that empathy is the transmission mechanism with which evil contaminates you. And I think that is even true if you look at it from a parent-child perspective. Because you have a cycle of abuse and a cycle of violence that goes from parent